Before the Titans existed, power filled the cosmos but had no clear arrangement. Forces moved, influenced one another, and collided, yet nothing defined where one domain truly ended and another began. Chaos was not simply disorder. It was an undivided field where everything overlapped. When the Titans rose into existence, that condition began to change. These beings were not merely powerful. Each Titan carried a specific orientation toward reality: sky, ocean, memory, balance, light, time. Their presence started separating the universe into recognizable directions. This was not a sudden transformation. No voice declared a new law of existence. Instead, something quieter began to unfold. Boundaries appeared slowly, almost invisibly, as if the cosmos itself were learning how to organize its own forces. And once boundaries appear, another question naturally follows. If the universe can divide itself into parts, can those parts begin to function together? The Titans did not simply add more power to the universe. What they introduced was something far more consequential: position. Each Titan embodied a domain that began stabilizing around them. The sky no longer expanded in every direction without distinction. The waters surrounding the world were no longer just drifting influences. Memory, balance, light, and motion began settling into recognizable patterns. This did not mean the cosmos suddenly became peaceful. Forces still moved, collided, and evolved. But something subtle had changed. Power now had direction. Direction slowly produced arrangement. Arrangement, over time, produced expectation. When a force consistently behaves in the same place, observers begin to treat it as a role rather than an accident. And when roles emerge inside a system, the universe stops behaving like an unpredictable field. It begins behaving like something else entirely: a structure. Order does not appear all at once. It emerges gradually through repetition. When certain forces consistently occupy the same positions, patterns begin to form. The sky remains above. The waters remain around the world. Light follows its cycles. Memory preserves what has already happened. These patterns do not require intention. They arise from stability, and stability changes how reality behaves. Before this moment, existence resembled a continuous surface where everything blended together. But now the cosmos begins dividing itself into distinct territories of influence. Territories create orientation. Orientation creates expectation. And expectation creates something that had never truly existed before: predictability. The universe can now be observed as something that follows recognizable paths rather than endless variation. But once predictability enters reality, another possibility quietly emerges alongside it. If something follows a pattern, could that pattern ever be interrupted? A structure becomes meaningful only when its parts begin interacting in consistent ways. As the Titans stabilized their domains, the universe slowly shifted from a collection of forces into something more organized. Each domain influenced the others without dissolving their boundaries. Sky-shaped light. Water reflected motion. Memory preserved balance. This interaction created a network rather than isolated powers. The cosmos was no longer just separated into territories. Those territories began cooperating, forming a larger arrangement that could sustain itself over time. That is the moment a structure transforms into something else, a system. A system does not require constant creation. Once established, it continues operating through the relationships between its parts. And when a system begins functioning, the universe acquires something entirely new. Continuity. Reality is no longer just happening, it is operating. Once a system forms, each part naturally begins fulfilling a role. The Titans did not gather to assign responsibilities. No council decided who would control which aspect of existence. Yet their domains gradually stabilized into positions that the cosmos itself began recognizing. Sky governed the vast space above the world. Waters shaped the boundaries surrounding land. Light marked the rhythm of change. Memory preserved what had already occurred. These were not temporary functions. They became expectations embedded in the structure of reality. And when expectations appear, stability deepens. Because a system where every part understands its role can continue operating even when individual events fluctuate. Storms may rage, waves may crash, light may dim or brighten, but the roles remain. And as long as the roles remain, the system continues functioning. For the first time, the universe begins behaving like something that can maintain itself. Order. Stability often appears quiet from the outside. When every force occupies its place and every role performs its function, the universe begins moving with a steady rhythm. Change still happens, but it unfolds within boundaries rather than dissolving them. This rhythm creates a sensation that the cosmos has reached equilibrium. The Titans did not conquer the universe through conflict. Instead, their presence gradually allowed reality to settle into a configuration where everything could continue without constant collapse. In such a condition, events become understandable. Causes produce recognizable effects. Patterns repeat often enough that existence begins to feel dependable. Dependability is a powerful transformation. Because when the world becomes predictable, observers begin assuming that its current order will remain indefinitely. But systems that appear stable often conceal something beneath their surface. Stability does not eliminate tension, it only organizes it. A system becomes truly powerful when its structure can be seen. Once the Titans established stable roles, the arrangement of reality was no longer hidden within chaos. Anyone observing the cosmos could begin recognizing how its parts interacted. The sky did not randomly drift through existence. The waters did not suddenly abandon their boundaries. Light followed a recognizable path. These patterns turned the universe into something understandable. Understanding creates awareness, and awareness changes how beings relate to the system they inhabit. When the structure of reality becomes visible, its strengths become obvious. But so do its weaknesses, because every system that can be observed can also be analyzed. And anything that can be analyzed can eventually be questioned. Why does this part exist here? What would happen if that role changed? Questions like these do not destroy a system immediately, but they introduce something new into its stability, possibility. Order carries weight. When the universe existed as a continuous field of overlapping forces, nothing could truly be lost because nothing was clearly defined. But once a system forms, every part becomes identifiable. The sky can now be recognized as distinct from the sea. Memory can be distinguished from motion. Balance can be separated from light. This clarity transforms how existence is perceived. Instead of an endless blur of influence, reality becomes a map. And maps allow observers to measure change. If one domain shifts, the system notices. If a role disappears, the structure reacts. Order, therefore, creates a paradox. The more organized a universe becomes, the more sensitive it becomes to disruption. What once blended invisibly inside chaos now stands out as a change that cannot be ignored. The Titans created stability, but in doing so, they also created something else: vulnerability. By the time the Titans fully stabilized their domains, the cosmos had developed something resembling architecture. Not buildings, not cities, but an arrangement where each part supported the others. Sky framed the world above. Waters surrounded it. Light moved through predictable cycles. Memory ensured that events left traces behind them. This architecture allowed existence to sustain itself. A system built from interacting parts does not require constant intervention. Its structure maintains balance through relationships. If one element shifts slightly, others adjust. This is how stable systems endure. But endurance introduces a new dimension to existence: time. When a system lasts long enough, observers begin comparing its past with its present. They begin asking whether the current order will remain unchanged in the future. And that question introduces a quiet tension into the heart of stability. If the system can continue, could it also someday transform? It is tempting to imagine that the Titans intentionally designed the universe as a harmonious structure. But the truth is far less deliberate. The system did not arise from a single decision. It emerged from countless interactions, stabilizing over time. Harmony, therefore, appeared not because the Titans desired it, but because their domains fit together in ways that allowed the cosmos to continue operating. Sky did not fight the ocean. Light did not erase memory. Each power simply performed its function within the larger arrangement. The result was a universe that appeared balanced even without conscious planning. This balance gave the impression that the system might remain unchanged forever. But harmony produced by interaction rather than intention contains a hidden fragility. Because if the relationships between parts ever shift, the harmony could shift as well, and systems built on relationships are never completely immune to change. At first glance, stability can resemble stillness. When the Titan system reached maturity, the cosmos no longer appeared chaotic. Forces moved within predictable paths, and every domain continued fulfilling its role. Yet stability does not mean nothing is happening. Beneath the surface of order, countless interactions continue shaping the system. Light responds to sky. Water responds to motion. Memory records every transformation. These interactions create subtle pressures that accumulate over time. Systems do not collapse only through sudden catastrophe. They often transform through gradual tension building within their own structure. This is the quiet reality hidden inside stability. The more organized a system becomes, the more clearly its internal pressures can be felt. Order does not eliminate tension. It gives tension somewhere to exist. And once tension has a place within the system, its influence slowly grows. When the arrangement of reality becomes clear, observers gain the ability to imagine alternatives. Before the Titans established order, there was nothing to compare. Chaos contained everything at once. No single configuration stood out as the correct one. But once the universe stabilized into a system, a reference point appeared. The current order became the model against which all other possibilities could be measured. This is a powerful transformation. Because once a model exists, the mind begins asking whether different arrangements might also work. Could the sky move differently? Could another force occupy a role that currently belongs to someone else? These questions do not immediately change the system, but they introduce a new layer of awareness. The realization that the structure of reality is not the only conceivable configuration. And awareness like this quietly reshapes how beings view power. Change had always existed in the universe. Storms passed, waves shifted, light faded and returned. Yet these events occurred within the boundaries of the system rather than altering its structure. What had not yet occurred was a transformation of roles themselves. As long as each Titan remained connected to their domain, the architecture of reality stayed intact. But once observers recognize that roles exist, another idea inevitably follows. Roles can change. This concept does not immediately threaten stability. In fact, systems often appear strong precisely because their roles are clearly defined. Yet the very clarity that strengthens a structure also exposes how it might someday be altered. A system without roles cannot be replaced, but a system built from roles carries the possibility that those roles could shift. And that possibility lingers quietly inside the order the Titans created. Systems are powerful precisely because their parts cooperate. Yet this cooperation also creates dependence. Each role relies on others to maintain balance. Sky shapes the movement of light. Waters influence the boundaries of the world. Memory preserves the continuity that allows the system to recognize itself. If any of these roles were to change dramatically, the relationships sustaining the structure would also change. This does not mean the universe would immediately collapse. Systems often adapt, but adaptation requires transformation, and transformation introduces uncertainty. The Titan's order appeared stable, perhaps even eternal, yet its stability depended on the continued alignment of every domain within the structure. If that alignment were ever disrupted, the consequences would ripple through the entire cosmos. For the first time, the possibility of losing order begins to carry real weight. The Titans did not intend to create instability. Their presence simply allowed the universe to organize itself into a functioning system. Yet once order exists, the possibility of its disruption becomes unavoidable. This is the shadow cast by every stable structure. A system defines what belongs inside it, but by doing so, it also defines what would happen if something moved outside its boundaries. The more precise the order becomes, the clearer its potential points of fracture appear. The Titans built the architecture of reality. They established the roles that allowed the cosmos to operate. But within that architecture lies a quiet question. What happens when a role changes? When the answer to that question eventually arrives, it will not merely alter one domain. It will reshape the entire system. Order feels secure because it appears predictable. When every part of the universe performs its role, observers assume the system will continue indefinitely. The sky remains above, the waters remain around the world, and light continues marking the rhythm of change. Yet predictability hides a deeper truth. The more stable a system becomes, the more significant any disruption will be. In chaos, disturbances disappear into the surrounding disorder, but within a system, even a small shift can travel through every connected part. This is the paradox the Titans unknowingly created. By establishing a stable order, they also ensured that any future transformation would carry enormous consequences. The universe now has something it never possessed before, something valuable. And anything valuable introduces a new fear, the fear of losing it. Once beings recognize the value of stability, they begin protecting it. The Titans did not initially think of their domains as possessions. They simply existed within the roles that naturally formed around them. But as the system continued operating, those roles became more than functions. They became positions, and positions invite questions of control. Who holds them? Who might replace them? Who decides whether they remain unchanged? These questions do not immediately produce conflict, but they reshape how power is perceived. The Titans had created a world where every domain had a place. Now that place could be defended or challenged. And once the possibility of challenge exists, the calm surface of stability begins concealing something deeper: ambition. The order established by the Titans could have continued unchanged for ages. Every role had a place. Every domain supported the structure of the cosmos. Stability appeared complete. Yet systems built on roles inevitably face a moment when one of those roles becomes contested. The Titans had unknowingly created the conditions for such a moment. They had revealed how the universe was organized. They had shown where power lived within the system. And once power can be seen, it can also be claimed. Soon, one Titan would look at the architecture of reality and recognize something no one had yet acted upon. If roles exist, they can change hands. When that realization finally turns into action, the calm order of the Titans will face its first true fracture, and the history of the gods will enter a new chapter, the Age of Succession.